Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranithai, Gauranithai, Jaya Gauranithai. Nitai Gaura Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai go, Jaya Radha Madhava, Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jayo Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Pravṛtta-Acharya Stota Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, BBT Founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Primshika Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kun Shama Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Navdvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Birhat Murdanga Ki Jai, Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, Hari Hari Bo. Om Jnana Timirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshruvam Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Rati Vrindavindishvare Vrishabhanu Sute Deve Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langete kirim yad kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to our today's ecstatic study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we are going to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, entitled Departure of Lord Kṛṣṇa for Dwarka, verse number 3. Please follow me. Niśamya bhīṣmoktam athācyuta-uktam pravṛtta-vijñāna-vidhūta-vibhramaḥ śaśāsa indra ivājitāśrayaḥ paridhi-upāntām anujānuvartitaḥ niśamya bhīṣmoktam athācyuta-uktam pravṛtta-vijñāna-vidhūta-vibhramaḥ śaśāsa indra ivājitāśrayaḥ paridhyupāntām anujānuvartitaḥ niśamya bhīṣmoktam athācyuta-uktam pravṛtta-vijñāna-vidhūta-vibhramaḥ śaśāsa indra ivājitāśrayaḥ paridhi-upāntām anujānuvartitaḥ. Vaishnavas. Niśamya bhīṣmoktam athācyuta-uktam pravṛtta-vijñāna-vidhūta-vibhramaḥ śaśāsa indra ivājitāśrayaḥ paridhi-upāntām anujānuvartitaḥ. Niśamya bhīṣmoktam athācyutoktam pravṛtta-vijñāna-vidhūta-vibhramaḥ śaśāsa indra ivājitāśrayaḥ paridhi-upāntām anujānuvartitaḥ. Vaishnavis. Niśamya bhīṣmoktam athācyutoktam pravṛtta-vijñāna-vidhūta-vibhramaḥ śaśāsa indra ivājitāśrayaḥ paridhi-upāntām anujānuvartitaḥ. Niśamya bhīṣmoktam athācyutoktam pravṛtta-vijñāna-vidhūta-vibhramaḥ śaśāsa indra ivājitāśrayaḥ paridhi-upāntām anujānuvartitaḥ. Word for word. Niśamya. After listening. Bhīṣma-uktam. What was spoken by Bhīṣmadeva? Atha. As also. Acyuta-uktam. What was spoken by the infallible Lord Kṛṣṇa? Pravṛtta, being engaged in vijñāna, perfect knowledge, vidhūta, completely washed, vibhramaḥ, all misgivings, śaśāsa, ruled over, the earth, Indra, the king of the heavenly planet, Eva, like, ajita-āśrayaḥ, protected by the invincible Lord, paridhi-upāntām, including the seas, anuja, the younger brothers, anuvartitaḥ, being followed by them, Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhīṣmadeva and Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge, because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas, and was followed by his younger brothers. Please repeat after me. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhīṣmadeva and Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge, because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas, and was followed by his younger brothers. Purport. The modern English law of primogeniture, or the law of inheritance by the firstborn, was also prevalent in those days when Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira ruled the earth and seas. In those days, the king of Hastinapur, now part of New Delhi, was the emperor of the world, including the seas, up to the time of Mahārāja Parikshit, the grandson of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira's younger brothers were acting as his ministers and commanders of state, and there was full cooperation between the perfectly religious brothers of the king. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was the ideal king, or representative of Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, to rule over the kingdom of earth, and was comparable to King Indra, the representative ruler of the heavenly planets. The demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varuna, and Vayu are representative kings of different planets of the universe, and similarly, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was also one of them, ruling over the kingdom of the earth. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was not a typically unenlightened political leader of modern democracy. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was instructed by Bhīṣmadeva and the infallible Lord also. So Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira was instructed by who? By Bhīṣmadeva and the infallible Lord, who and therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. Let's repeat. And therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. Thank you. The modern elected executive head of a state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. Therefore, there are so many states over the earth quarreling because of ideological differences or other selfish motives. But a king like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira had no ideology of his own. He had but to follow the instructions of the infallible Lord and the Lord's representative and the authorized agent, Bhīṣmadeva. It is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and the infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. Therefore, it was possible for Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira to rule the whole world, including the seas, because the principles were infallible and universally applicable to everyone. The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we can follow the infallible authority. An imperfect human being cannot create an ideology acceptable to everyone. Only the perfect and the infallible can create a program which is applicable at every place and can be followed by all in the world. It is a person who rules, and not the impersonal government. If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is a law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings or executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be a trained person like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, and he must have the full autocratic power to rule over the world. The conception of a world state can take shape only under the regime of a perfect king like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. The world was happy in those days because there were kings like Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira to rule over the world. Hare Krishna. So at the beginning of Srila Prabhupada's purport, he mentioned primogeniture, or the law of inheritance of the firstborn. Similarly, if we read Gopalabhatta Goswami's Samsara book, he's talking about, he quoted from Samaveda, and there are altogether major samskars in one's life. The first one is Garbhodam, and then the second one is Pumsavana. Garbhodam means to conceive a child. And then if you conceived a child, then if one is pregnant, on the 3rd month of pregnancy should perform this Pumsavana ceremony. This is to make sure that you can get a son. According to Manu, he mentioned, usually this is when you feel the fetus is moving in the womb, you can perform this ceremony. But there are also other commentators, they mention that only for the firstborn child you can do this, and not necessary for every birth. Why? Because in Vedic society, in Vedic culture, the first son is playing a very important role. Therefore, even from the beginning of conception, even before conception, you have to meditate in order to invoke all the auspiciousness in order to get. Because Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the Bhagavatam purport, said, if you want to have a child, you can only pray for 2 kinds of child. If you read Prabhupada's purport, we will be completely surprised by his conception. Because he said you can only pray for 2 kinds of child to come to take birth in your family. One is the incarnation of the Lord. The other one is the pure devotee of the Lord. So maybe some of us, we're going to give birth to a child, or maybe we can give advice to our friends who are going to do this Garbhodam. So we can tell them, this is the standard mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. And we know that globally our weather is very much disturbed. So many places there's a hurricane, tornadoes, and my friend, I called her a few days ago, her city is in the middle of our country and is suffering from heavy rain and flood, and the water is coming up to the 3rd floor. So similarly, it is also mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, whenever there's abnormal weather, so many like ill omens, that means a demon is born. So we can see how many abnormal phenomena on our earth, that means so many demons are taking birth. Then how we can change this? At least as parents or advisors of the parents, we can suggest them to follow the sastras, to chant more rounds at least before they are conceiving the child, elevate their consciousness. And then the Grihastha ashram is such a wonderful ashram. By creating child, you can create devotees. So this is something wonderful we can meditate. And also this verse mentioned the super excellent quality of Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira. We have to understand Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, what kind of caliber he has. Srila Prabhupada is very mercifully give a lecture on the same verse in this Sridham Mayapur. And he mentioned Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj, he's enthroned by Lord Kṛṣṇa. He's not thinking, oh, now I'm going to enjoy the kingdom. Not like us. Sometimes even we're appointed as a leader of a Namahata group, or we get little position, become the leader of a small department, we become very much proud. And Prabhupada used a word, he said, they would jump over. We would jump over to the position like monkeys. But we should not do the monkey business. Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, his mindset is, because we can see from the verse, the translation itself, he was enlightened by what was spoken by Bhīṣmadeva and also what was spoken by Kṛṣṇa. So he is completely enlightened. And why he accepted this position as the emperor of the whole world? Because now he understands by the instructions of Bhīṣmadeva, a great Mahājan, and also by the infallible Lord. By the way, when I was reading the purport, I noticed at least infallible, this word, occurred 5 times in this particular purport. So Kṛṣṇa is infallible, but we are fallible. As fallible souls, we have to follow the example of the infallible. And so Bhīṣmadeva is thinking, now I'm convinced. I am taking this position, be enthroned as the emperor of the whole world, because this is the right thing for me to do. Kṛṣṇa convinced him. This is his constitutional position. He should serve Lord Kṛṣṇa in this way. That's why he accepted this position. Not because of cheap adoration. Not because he wants to get other people's admiration. He has no false ego. And why here the Lord is called infallible? When Prabhupada is giving lecture on this verse, he mentioned that Bhīṣmadeva, he said, even I am fallible. Bhīṣmadeva is a very famous brahmachari. He never got married, not even touching any girls, never had a girlfriend in his life. He's an ideal brahmachari. But he said, no, I'm not such a nice brahmachari. The most perfect brahmachari is Lord Kṛṣṇa himself. But we can think, maybe we're thinking it's a joke, because Lord Kṛṣṇa, when he's doing the rasa dance, he has billions of girlfriends. Here we can see towards the God, and that place actually is a rasa stali. In that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to say that. He said, when I see over there to that direction, this direction. when I'm seeing toward that direction, and he said, this is a place that Lord Kṛṣṇa is performing his rasa dance, and I can see there are billions and billions of gopis dancing with Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa has so many girlfriends. And how many queens he has in Dwarka? How many queens? Yes, 16,108. Perfect, thank you. He has so many wives, but he has one wonderful quality. That's the quality is he's not agitated among all those beautiful women. Bhīṣmadeva said, why he's a better brahmachari than me? Because if I am in that position, I would certainly become agitated. But Kṛṣṇa is not. So by following the perfect example, by meditating on his qualities, we can cultivate similar qualities. And there's another point mentioned in the translation. It says, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, he engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. He has perfect knowledge. And also during our reading the purport, we also repeated that therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. So we have to understand what is the purpose of knowledge, what is the purpose of education. When Prabhupada is giving lecture on the same verse, he said, education is to purify our knowledge. Education is to purify our knowledge. Why education is to purify our knowledge? Because we may think we have a lot of knowledge. We know mathematics, we know English, we know history, we know geography, we know chemistry, physics, so many things. But all these things are not perfect knowledge. The perfect knowledge is about the soul. It's about you understand who you are. Dabir Kash and Sakar Malik, Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, when they first met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are using a straw, putting in between their teeth, showing their complete humility. And they're asking Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kaya me, what I am. In Chaitanya Charitamrita is mentioned. They said, I don't even know who am I, so please instruct me. And similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, after setting the scene, after introducing the whole scenario of Kurukshetra battle in chapter 1, and then in the chapter 2, Arjuna is asking Krishna, Karpanda dosho pahata svabhava, prichami tvam dharma samudacheta, yatshriya nishtitam bruhitam me, sheshaste ham shadimam tvam prapannam. I'm confused my duty. I don't know what to do. So Krishna, you know the best. What is most beneficial for me to do? Please instruct me. Now I become your shishya. Now I become your disciple. And then Prabhupada, when he's giving lecture to the same verse, today's 1.10.3, he mentioned that when Arjuna is asking Krishna about his identity, about his constitutional position, what Krishna replied? Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita 2.13, Dehenosmin yatha dehe komaram yovanam jara tata deham tara prabhtir diras tatra namuhyati. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are not this body, you are the soul. And Arjuna is still lamenting, oh, I'm going to kill my teacher, my cousin brothers, and so many friends. They are my relatives and friends. He's showing like illusion, but in order to teach us, then Krishna is further telling him, Najayate miyate vakadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya ajo nitya shashvato yampurano nahanyate hanyamane shariri. The soul is forever existing. It's not being formed in the past, in the present, or in the future. When the body is killed, the soul is not affected. So therefore, the knowledge about the soul, the knowledge about devotional service, that is the perfect knowledge. We can also refer to the other great kings, great emperors in our history mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. What about in 7th canto, Prahlāda Mahārāja? In 7th canto, chapter 5, verse 23, 24, and 25, I think. Yes, he told us how the 9 process of devotional service is the perfect knowledge. Starting from Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam, Iti Pamsarpita Vishnu, Bhaktis Chennava Lakshana, Kriyeta Bhagavati Yatha, Tammanye Ditam Uttamam, Tammanye, I am thinking a person who is performing all these 9 different processes of devotional service. He's a Uttamam. He is a learned person because he has complete knowledge. He has complete knowledge. So this is a knowledge we need to have. Sometimes we're complaining, our mind is so much contaminated. What to do? Okay, very simple. We engage ourselves in the direct devotional service to Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa. And what is the direct devotional service to Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa? It is not that the pujaris, they're touching the deities and they're directly feeding the deities and dressing the deities. They are doing direct devotional service. Direct devotional service means these major processes of devotional service, starting from hearing and chanting. And when we are hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna, then what would happen? Our spiritual life, the soul itself feels satisfied and we got nourished. So we can make a progress. We can make tangible progress in our spiritual life, on our spiritual path. So this hearing can be solidified by chanting. And then among the Vaishnava Sanghas, we can make advancement like anything. And similarly, we can give another example of a great king, Canto 9, Ambarish Maharaj. So all these great emperors, they are the emperors of the whole world. Because at that time, the whole earth is called Bharatvarsha. It's not only India is called Bharatvarsha. The whole earth, also including The earthly atmosphere means the sky and all the water, the seas, like Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and even Indian Ocean. Prabhupada mentioned all this are under the control, the rule of one emperor. And that one emperor, Ambarish Maharaj, what is his mentality? What is his state of existence? He said, Savai mana Krishna padara vrindayu. Let my mind always be meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. And then, Vachamsi vaikunta gunānuvarnanam. Let my words be always glorifying the glories of Lord Sri Krishna. Karo hari mandira marjanadishu. Let my hands always clean the temples of Lord Krishna. Shutim chakara chuta satkato daye. Let my ears always hear the glories of Lord Sri Krishna or the words spoken by the Lord. And then mukunda lingalaya darshanardushu. Let my eyes always be fixed in the deity form of Lord Sri Krishna. And tadbirtya gatra sparshinga sangamam. Let my sense of touch be engaged, always touching the devotees' bodies. This transcendental touch. Actually, by touching a devotee, by serving a devotee, we can get 1/8 of his good qualities. And even by thinking of a devotee, we can get 1% of his good qualities. So this is what we should aspire. And then, Granam Chatad Pada Saroja Sorabe, Srimad Tulasya Rasanam Madarpite. We should always smell the tulasi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. And then we should always taste the prasadam, the remnants offered to Lord Sri Krishna. And then, Pado Hare Ketra Padanusarpane, Shiro Rishikesha Padabi Vandane. We should use our legs, always do pilgrimages to the Holy Dham, to Vrindavan, to Mayapur, and even to our local temples or local Namahata centers or local Sangha groups. And we should use our head to pay obeisances to Lord Rishikesh. And only in this way, kamancha dasi kama kamyaya. Our desires. Here, Maharaj Ambarish, he mentioned that all his desires 24 hours a day are engaged in serving the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. He has no other motives. He has no other agenda of his own to satisfy his own senses. And then, Yatotma shloka janashraya ratihi, like this, Utma shloka janashraya. Utma shloka janashraya means one should take shelter of a devotee like Prahlāda Maharaj. This is a very interesting point, because in the translation we can only see we should take shelter of the devotees, but in the word for word, janashraya, jana means person, ashraya means taking shelter, and you should take shelter of the best devotees. One of the best devotees is Prahlāda Maharaj. And only after that you get ratihi. What is this ratihi? The taste. So that means you only by this way, and you can increase your desires to serve Lord Sri Krishna, and you can be completely free from all material desires. So this is a great king, Ambarish Maharaj's recommendation to us. Even he is following the footsteps of Prahlāda Maharaj. So what we should do, we should follow all those Mahajans, all those great Maharajas. Actually, Prabhupada mentioned all these great kings, they are Rajarshis. What is the meaning of Rajarshis? Rajarshi means Raj plus Rishi. Raj means Maharaj, means the king, means the emperor. And Rishi means a saint, a sadhu. So all these great emperors, kings, they are great devotees and pure devotees of the Lord. We can think about them. Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj, his whole life, how much tribulation he's been experienced. But his love for Krishna never changed its color, even a little bit. Prahlāda Maharaj, his father, using more than 100 ways to try to kill him, but his mind always fixed on the Lord Hari. And then Ambarish Maharaj, when Durvasa Muni created a demon, and the demon came to try to kill him, he was thinking, oh, now's my time to take completely shelter of Krishna. So he was thinking of Lord Krishna. And in Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is mentioned when he was thinking about taking shelter of Lord Krishna, because he was thinking of Krishna, then he immediately connected with Krishna, and he was in complete ecstasy, and he has tears pouring out from his eyes. If we are in that kind of situation, oh, a great rishi created a demon coming to kill us, we're so much afraid. We would be crying with pouring tears out of fear. But he is crying, profusely crying with so much tear, because he's in ecstasy of thinking of Lord Krishna. Therefore, Prabhupada's comments, when he's giving class on this verse, he said, not only Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj is like this, but all the emperors, all the kings on the earth at that time are of same nature. And we have to particularly notice that Prabhupada is reiterating this point, because he said this twice. He said what twice? All the kings, all the emperors of the earth, they are of the same nature. They are all like Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj. And therefore, tomorrow, if we hear the next verse, we would see how auspicious is the earthly planet. And not only Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj, he is great, but all his brothers are so great. That's why in this shloka it is also mentioned, compared Yudhiṣṭhira Maharaj to Lord Indra, because Indra, he is the king of the heavenly planets. And it is mentioned he got his younger brother Upendra's help. So just like Indra is getting the help from his younger brother Upendra, and therefore he can nicely rule all the heavenly planets. So similarly, Mahārāja Yudhiṣṭhira, he's getting help and assistance from all his younger brothers. They are his ministers, they are his different commanders to help him. And we can recall the story of Indra and Upendra. This has happened in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, especially chapter 23. And in verse 22 to 23, it is mentioned, because the whole chapter is talking about how the demigods regain the heavenly planets by the help of Lord Upendra, by the help of Lord Vamanadeva. Because Vamanadeva, by the method of begging, he got all the three worlds back and gave back to Indra. And then just at this moment, in 8.23.22 to 23, it is mentioned that all the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, and they, although Indra is the master of all the universe, it is really mentioned there. It said, although the Indra is the master of all the universe, the whole universe, all the heavenly planets, but they want to establish Lord Vamanadeva as a master of everything. And it is mentioned that this decision made by the demigods headed by Lord Brahma made all the living entities extremely happy. And we can also make a comparison, because in this Kali Yuga, this is an age of coral. Just 1 week ago, on the auspicious Tirobhav Tithi of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, we saw a video lecture of His Holiness. And His Holiness especially mentioned Kali means coral. And Kali is whose son? He is the son of Krodh and Himsa. He is the son of anger and envy. Actually, anger and envy, they give birth not only to a son, they also give birth to a daughter, Durukti. Durukti is Kali's sister. She is harsh words. So this age of Kali, Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagi Upadrutaha, this is an age of quarrel. Everyone's unfortunate, and mind is very much disturbed. Not mention all the other shortcomings of Kali Yuga. So in this age, everyone is like to quarrel. And in 7th canto, when Prahlāda Maharaj is instructing his classmates and his fathers, in that place particularly mentioned that actually in this world, although a master can provide for a servant, all the needs of a servant is provided by a master, but the servant is always thinking, how can I take the position of the master? Maybe we have similar experiences of this hatred and envy. And even in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a story, because there are so many instances in the history. There is a great devotee, his name is Subhuti Roy. Subhuti Roy used to have a servant, one boy, and he's treating the boy very nicely like his own son. But at one point, the boy is stealing something, so he punished him by a cane, by beating him. But those beating left a mark on the boy's back. So when the boy grew up, somehow or other, by crook and hook, anyway, he becomes the supreme controller of Nawab Hussain. That is like the magistrate of the whole Bengal. And then when one night he was having his intimate pastime with his queen, and the queen noticed there is a mark on his back. So asked him what happened. He said, oh, when I was young, Subhuti Roy is my master, and I did something wrong, so he punished me. And then the queen is very upset. She said, you should kill him. And then taking her ill advice, this Nawab Hussain, this before servant of Subhuti Roy, he agreed to kill his master. But then he was thinking, anyway, I am obliged to him, so I just call him, sprinkle some water on his head, and make him a Mohammedan. So this happened, and we know after Subhuti Roy so much suffering, because the Brahmanas give him some advices that is even worse than killing himself. But later on, he's taking shelter of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he got salvation. So from all this we can understand, because Srila Prabhupada gave a comment in those purports. He said, although in this material world, everyone is a servant of our senses. Please especially note this point. Although in this material world, every one of us is a servant of our senses, but with still thinking we can become the master of the whole universe. Isn't it? We can think about it. Whenever our senses are greatly satisfied, we are feeling like we're on the top of the world. And interestingly, in the 7th canto, at the beginning chapters of 7th canto, when Hiranyakashipu, he went to perform great austerities, and all the demigods, they are feeling greatly disturbed. They went to Lord Brahma, and they complained to Lord Brahma. They said, you see, our Lord, this demon, Rakshasa, Hiranyakashipu, he is performing severe austerities. And his aim of doing this is to usurp your position. So even in the golden age, in Satya Yuga, even the position of Lord Brahma is in danger. And then the demigods, they are trying to convince Lord Brahma, you should do something. Because when you are there, there would be the protection of Brahminical culture and the cows. And then when the Brahminical culture and the cows are protected, and these two things are properly maintained, then there will be all auspiciousness, will be all good fortune in this world. If you are not there, if he became the head of this whole universe, then everyone will be suffering. And there will be only misfortune for the whole world. But what is Lord Brahma's reaction? If somebody coming to us and saying, hey, you know, such and such devotee is making a plot, a conspiracy against you. He's trying to substitute you, take your position. We would naturally become angry. But Lord Brahma, he's also a devotee of the Lord. He simply smiled. And accompanied by all those demigods, he went to the place where Hiranyakashipu is performing austerities to bless him. What he's doing? Not to control him. Hey, break it, like Indra. No, Prithu Maharaj, you are too much. 99 yagyas. No, you cannot do 100. I have to steal your horse again and again. I can't make you successful. But what Lord Brahma is doing, he's smiled, and accompanied by all the demigods, he went to the place where Hiranyakashipu is performing great austerities. His going there for the purpose of blessing him. So we can also learn this is the magnanimity of a great soul. And similarly, in our day-to-day life, we can use the same principles. We cannot use our mind's principles because our mind is a fickle mind. In Srila Prabhupada's one purport in Canto 4, Chapter 28, verse 33, Prabhupada is quoting from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the first verse of his book, Vaishnava K. Dustaman. To me, Keshe Vaishnava. Oh, my dear mind, what kind of Vaishnava are you? Actually, in the word-for-word translation, the synonyms, Dustaman is not my dear mind. The meaning of dusta mind means, oh, my evil mind, my sinful mind. What kind of Vaishnava are you? And Prabhupada quoted that verse in his purport in 4.28.33 because he wants to warn us. Sometimes we would be deviating from the right path. Sometimes we would be too much attached to hypocrisy and illusion. Therefore, we want to remain away from the association of the devotees. So we should always stay in the association of the devotees as much as we can. And also, after a few days, 2nd of August, it's going to be the anniversary of ISKCON New York's incorporation for 55 years. Also, this year is also going to be the 125th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada. So we have to meditate, we have to think about the significance of being a member of ISKCON. Because Prabhupada, in another purport in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 12, verse 37, Prabhupada mentioned why we give the facility of ISKCON. This ISKCON is the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. Why we established this society? Because then everyone has an opportunity to associate. And only when one is inside ISKCON, he can practically very easily become Krishna conscious. Very easily become Krishna conscious. And then one can become making great advancement on the spiritual path. And Prabhupada mentioned that devotees are very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is only dear to the devotees. A Krishna conscious person or the devotees of Lord Kṛṣṇa, he would be pleasing to everyone. Prabhupada said, we can see this practically in our ISKCON society. So we can think about how can we control our senses. Here is talking about management, talking about ruling the whole planet Earth, including the sea, including the atmosphere, the whole different lands. But we have to think about, at least we should become the master of our senses. And after becoming the master of our senses, how can we make a progress in our spiritual path? We have to always remain in the association of devotees inside the ISKCON. Take this rare opportunity. Because when we are among the devotees, we will recite the scriptures, we get the maximum benefit. By the way, there's another interesting point I would add. That is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 23, at the end. It's like Falashrutis. It is mentioned that if we hear about how Upandra is helping Lord Indra to regain his kingdom, then by hearing these pastimes, we can eradicate all reactions. Isn't that wonderful? All reactions of sinful activities. So life after life, the accumulated sinful reactions will be gone simply by hearing Lord Vamana's pastimes, how he's helping his younger brother Indra, because both of them are Kasyapa and Aditi's sons. So in order to please Kashyapa Muni and Aditi, Indra is helping his elder brother, Upendra, Vamanadeva is helping his elder brother Indra to regain his heavenly kingdom. And simply by hearing this narration, we can eradicate all reactions of sinful activities. And plus, we can be elevated at least to heavenly planets, or even back to Godhead, back to Vaikuntha, the spiritual planets. Haribo! And there's a third benediction. This we can really utilize. The third benediction is the last verse in that chapter. So it is mentioned, all of us, sometimes we have to execute some social, ritualistic ceremonies. And these ritualistic ceremonies can be divided by 3 categories. Number 1, we do it to please some demigods. Or maybe we can even do it to please the Lord. And number 2, maybe we're doing it to please our forefathers in Pitraloka. And number 3 is about the social functions. Social functions mainly for celebrating birthdays and marriages. So it is mentioned, if on birthday parties and marriage ceremonies, if you can recite, you can give narration of Lord Vamanadeva's these pastimes, and then there would be extremely auspicious for this ceremony. So who doesn't want to become very auspicious, also extremely auspicious, not possible become more auspicious? Who doesn't want to achieve that result? So next time, when we are invited for birthday parties or marriage ceremonies, be sure, mention something about how Lord Vamanadeva or Upendra helped his elder brother Indra to achieve the heavenly planets. Hare Krishna. Maybe we can take some comments, corrections, 1 or 2 questions. Yes. So first Narada Muni Prabhu and then that Mataji. Please check the microphone. Yoma? Good. Otherwise, you can speak loudly and I will repeat your question, Prabhuji. Yes. Oh.
When during marriage ceremony, when we mentioned about Lord Chaitanya visiting Gaya, and in Gaya he visited the temple of the Lord Gadadhar. That's not Vamanadeva, but Gadadhar. Narada Muni told that Vamanadeva's footprint, but it's okay, Vamanadeva. So will it be also auspicious, like to mention, because the connection is definitely here.
Thank you for a nice comment. So, if we mention that pastime, it's also very auspicious. If we mention any pastime of the Lord, it would create auspiciousness. Thank you. All auspicious. The Lord is all auspicious. Yes.
I just wonder, you just mentioned that when we embrace the devotee, hug the devotee, so 1/8 of the devotee's quality goes to us. And where did you get it from? What is the source of it?
Oh, the source I read from Krishna Katamrita Bindu, a periodical magazine from Bhubaneswar, the devotees.
Madhavananda Prabhu.
Yes. Madhavananda Prabhu, thank you. And then the part I mentioned, that when you are getting the 1%, when you are thinking, that is from Mahanidhi Maharaj's book, many years ago.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for a wonderful class with so many shastric references. I was wondering if you have any tips for studying the Bhagavatam, like how did you...
Can you please move more?
I wanted to know how you managed to memorize so many verses and, remember off the top of your head. How did you study the Bhagavatam? And how can you recommend us to also study to be able to, recall verses in this way?
So this Mataji is asking how I can summarize your question like this, how I remembered all the specific locations of different verses, how I studied them. It's only by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, because I do have very poor memory. I was crying. In private, I was holding Srimad Bhagavatam crying, and I pray that Bhagavatam be established in my heart. And also we know in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham riddhi sannivishto matas mrithi ganam mapohanam cha. Krishna says, I am situated in every living entity's heart, and forgetfulness, knowledge, memory, everything comes from me. So I pray and again pray. So that is how we get the mercy. And when we get the mercy, we are taking greater responsibilities. And we always discuss and we impart the knowledge to as many people as we can. Then the mercy would come and will be overpouring more and more. But if we don't take more responsibilities, when we get the mercy, and slowly the mercy would go away. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, in the beginning, you told we must have two...
Prabhuji, can you speak a little louder and put the microphone near your mouth?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
like this angle is good.
Can you hear now? Haribol. Mataji, in the beginning, you told we should have two kids. When mothers in home, that time before that we should read all Bhagavatam and spiritual thing.
Yes.
So when baby is in womb, so mother and should listen through mother ear. Baby also listen the spiritual thing, good things. Before birth itself he start learning spiritual thing. So my question is, when you explain, so first baby we do, second baby we give importance to the first baby for giving this kind of activity. For second baby, not necessary. Why so?
Hare Krishna. So thank you for your question. I would clarify. Actually, maybe 2 points are got mixed. So I mentioned 2 points. One is before we're doing a garbhodam, samskar, when we are conceiving the child, we should prepare our mentality. Therefore, our proper mentality would attract an elevated soul to come and take birth in our family. And then I mentioned there's one ceremony about Pansavana. Pansavana is a ritual to make sure you get your first child as a male child. So we are saying only the first, some commentators saying that only the firstborn child you will need to do this Pansavana ceremony, not necessary for every birth. So not necessary all your children are like male child. That's why we mentioned this ceremony for begetting a male child should be done, at least for the firstborn child, but not necessary for the consecutive children. I don't know if this is clear or not. There's two conceptions. One is we should prepare our mentality in order to attract a great soul to take birth in our family. And then the second point is for Pansavana, this samskar, the purpose of this ceremony is to make our first child as a son, because in Vedic culture, so many ceremonies request your first son to perform, even like Shraddha, so many other ceremonies. Is that clear now?
Yes. Yes, yes, I understood.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I have one more question.
Yes.
During my wife pregnancy, I used to read Gita. After my comeback from office, I used to read 2-3 pages and try to explain her. She was happily listening for half or 1 page. After that, she was annoyed or bored, something. So my mother-in-law, calm down, listen, he's good job, he's doing good job. Somehow, we got a baby. My son is now studying in 10th standard. Till last year, he was very good. Now, due to these circumstances, nowadays no class, school, only online class. So, due to online class, he is not getting concentration in his books. After the school is over, online class is over, I am asking him to, you start this spiritual activity, come with me to temple, read Bhagavatam in your tab or something. He is not interested, Mataji. He is always playing games, attached with friends, and how can I motivate him?
Hare Krishna.
Please
Thank you,
support
Prabhuji.
me.
So Prabhu is mentioning that when his wife is pregnant and he was used to read at least half an hour of Bhagavad Gita to her. But then now your son is in the school, like first year is very good, but now because it's lockdown, he's at home taking only online classes, seems like slackened in spiritual practice. And he was trying to convince him to be engaged again in spiritual activities like chanting and reading. But then he needs some support, so what to do? One suggestion I can offer is we engage ourselves enthusiastically in all these spiritual activities. And then, actually, Krishna consciousness, after this, you want to share something, Prabhuji? No? Oh, okay. Because I saw your hand. Okay, so, actually, in essence, our preaching of Krishna consciousness, in one sense, is to share our life with others. And when other people see, we are very happy, because in this whole world, who would not like a happy person? We even would pay money to make ourselves happy. So when we see one person very happy, we are naturally becoming very much attracted. So in order to attract our son to be engaged in spiritual activities, we ourselves has to be very, very much enthusiastically engaged in the same spiritual activities. And we would show in a way that you cannot get any happiness from anywhere. And in this way, we can attract our family members. There's a very interesting story we can quote, like Mark Twain. He's a very famous American writer. He wrote a novel like The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And in that story, in that novel, he mentioned that Huckleberry Finn, one time he got a job, he needed to paint the wall. So at the beginning, he's begging his little friends, Huckleberry Finn, name, a small boy's name, American boy. And then he's begging all his friends, oh, please help me. I need to complete this task given by my parents. I need to paint the wall. Nobody is helping him. And then what he did something like this. He's painting the wall. He's singing and dancing. He's like showing so much happiness and ecstasy. And then all his little friends thinking, wow, to be able to paint the wall is a privilege. And then all his friends came to him. Hey, can I trade you? I can give you my favorite pet. I have one frog. I give to you. I can give you my books. I can give you my cakes. I can give you my toys. Then, at the end, Huckleberry Finn, he got all the gifts, all the properties from all his little friends. He's sitting there drinking soft drinks, eating their cakes, and reading their storybooks, cartoons, and supervising all his friends painting the walls enthusiastically. So similarly, there is application in America, one temple. They are distributing Mahaprasadam at $2 per plate. Then nobody is coming. And every plate they're distributing, they have to use their own money to add to it in order to cover the cost. But then they are thinking what to do. Okay, they make a new policy. They make the price become $12 per plate. And then when it's $2 per plate, They have to beg other people, please come, take this divine food. When it's $12, they said this is the best food in town. Then people are making big lines. Everyone's trying to grab a little bit of Mahaprasad. So and similarly, we want to attract our family members, our friends. We have to show that enthusiasm. When they're attracted, then we can share our experiences with them. It is not that we always have to beg. When we beg, they're not thinking what you're offering is valuable. When you present it in such a valuable way, and they understand, it's very rare. It's a privilege to be able to chant Hare Krishna, to be able to study Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to make them to understand this is a privilege, and it is. It is. And then, hope you're very successful. I pray for you. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Jai.